And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, August 15th. How's everybody doing?
Doing really well.
Good.
Yeah.
Doing
Fantastic.
fine.
We are a
Thank you,
minute late and
Rocco.
it's not my fault, but we
Excellent.
are
I'm
open for business. Just saying. So I think we went live without any hitches. You know, last week I had a echo in the recording come on like 3 or 4 times. So everybody thought I was lagging out last week, and I wasn't. I was just standing there stunned because like I keep hearing the same intro over and over again for the first couple seconds. So off without a hitch, and we're good to go. All right. I'm going to have a few emails I want to bring up and respond to. But what's everybody been doing this week? Cricket.
I have been just relaxing and doing absolutely nothing because got laid off from work, so I have a lot of free time. So other than that, just chilling, doing some cleaning around the house and all that good stuff, and looking for a different job. Might be going back with Apple.
That's the bad word around here. You know, last week we had Biddle Europe and Biddle Regular, and I think we scared away some Linux people because we were talking about what would get our Linux card revoked, and man, it was like a bashing fest all around. But I'm still proud to say that I did not win that race. I'm gonna say that Schickel won and Magnus, and I'm also gonna say that, you know, I'm going to take my dad's word for it. He said Joe absolutely loses his Linux card.
So. Oh, yeah. Well, I blame Jim.
All right. Anybody else got anything they want to share with?
I got myself a spare HP Thin client, which is the same exact one that I'm using as my router. And I'm going to spend my next few days off playing around with OpenSense to see how good it is compared to pfSense.
Sounds like fun to me.
Yep.
It doesn't sound like fun to me, but I'm not a network guy, so.
Wow. Sounds like a good time. I'm curious to see how it works out for you.
Yeah, what's the advantage to, I guess, purported advantage or difference between OpenSense from pfSense?
So the big thing that has me interested is that the pfSense guys really have no interest in supporting WireGuard, and OpenSense already has WireGuard support built in. So that's the big feature that's pulling me over that I want to play around with.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it could be handy. Dave Jones, you got your hand up. Can't find the mute button, but he's got his hand up.
No, my mouse disappeared. I actually at work have been updating. We use for our web kiosk. We use a program called Open Kiosk, which I was trying to look up. I think it's developed by. It has some workings with the Mozilla development group.
Oh,
and
cool.
when they have a new version that's come out, but every time you download it, it's a tar file you have to unzip. So I'm actually thinking about trying to maybe create my first snap.
Whoa.
I need a lot of help, but
that would be awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's because every time it updates, you have to re-download it, you have to extract it, and then you have to click on go into the terminal, click on the install, and then it brings up an icon you have to click up. So
that's on my bucket list to create a snap, but it's just not happening yet. Not enough time yet.
I may be sending out questions to certain people in this group.
Oh, that's cool. Seems like
a
perfect use case for it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll help it out tremendously because I love the program. We use it for online catalogs, and it works great because you can whitelist all the other websites, so patrons aren't using it to check their email and everything. It goes to the catalog, which is web based, and it just does that and nothing else.
Very cool. Nice.
Daniel?
Hey, how is everybody doing?
Fantastic.
I know it's been a while since I've been here. I've been working like a dog. A lot of overtime, so I've been my big thing the last couple of weeks has just been trying to get my work Windows machine to act like Linux as much as possible.
That's impossible.
Nah, it's really not possible at all. Although I have run across Chocolatey. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, and that makes my life a heck of a lot easier because it's
at
a
least
lot
more
like
familiar.
Apt. Yeah, I mean it's a lot like Apt or any of the other ones, so at least I can get in there and play with that. And I've got the Bash terminal installed. I tried to do WSL, but for some reason our version of Windows is like not the correct one to pull it in correctly, and I just can't. It's too hard to get to work while I'm actually in the middle of trying to work. So that's my next thing is I want to try to do that because I do a lot with like SQL databases and scripting and stuff like that for the project that I'm on. Although all the other half of it is all. Right now I'm on a project where we're trying to do an implementation of Informatica for our master data management, and it's it's been a fun experience. There's the last couple of weeks I've been losing track of days. I've been putting in so much time on that thing. So
you have to say Chocolatey's pretty good. I think I did a video on Chocolatey, but there's another one called Night, which is another way of managing packages on Windows as well. So
but I thought that was more for use for like creating disks, Colin, like for like putting drivers in.
Night, you check the applications you want, and I think it automatically updates those applications as well, I believe.
Yeah, Night.
Open that file again, it will automatically update and reinstall if you delete it and stuff like that.
Yeah, Night's really nice. They have a paid version which then integrates with Active Directory, which is
okay, cool. Yeah,
which is really cool, and it's pretty cheap. It's only like $50-$60 a year. Only thing is, I've used Chocolatey before in the past. The only thing is with Chocolatey, I think has a larger amount of software that's available for it. Night
they
just really has like the standard, here are the popular web browsers, here are the popular word processing programs, photo manipulators, and so on, where Chocolatey's got a really big list of items. But I found Chocolatey, I mean, I haven't used it in like 2-3 years. And when I had used it, when it worked great, but the install process would like to hang up sometimes. And
yeah, I've noticed that with some of you got to be careful with some of the packages.
Yeah.
That just sometimes it'll get stuck. But
I mean, Night is great. If it had more software, it would be perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
Alan, can you get us back on the Linux rails now that we've been talking about it?
Yeah, so Dave, just ping me if you need help. I'll happy to help.
Will do, thanks.
So I've been playing with Pinebook Pro that the Pine people very kindly sent me, and I've been downloading all the different images, and I've played with an Ubuntu image that I found. It came with Manjaro. And I've left that on the internal disk. Oh, it's show your Pinebook time, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. It's got Manjaro on it, and I've got a bunch of SD cards lined up in front of me. One that's got Ubuntu and one that's got the new Elementary OS 6, which I've been trying out, which was fun. Found my first bug, reported the bug to the Elementary guys, and then poked Dan in a private Telegram chat and said, "Hey, fix this." And he did, so that's now fixed. But it was it's good. It's looking really nice. I really love the work that they're doing on Elementary, and Elementary 6 looks really, really nice, really smooth. I think there's some work to do still on the Pinebook Pro to get the GPU acceleration stuff all working nicely, but it's looking pretty good already.
Nice.
Cool.
I have downloaded the version 6.2, and it has some, I don't know, like, am I wrong, Alan? Some of the things look clearer than they did before. I don't know if that's the contrast of everything, or it just seems like the whole system looks a little bit clearer. Now, it's still...
I'd have to see it side by side. I maybe I've just not got a keen eye like yourself, or, these don't work, maybe.
Yeah, well...
But it looks nice. It really does look nice.
Yep, it definitely does. So, like your Pinebook Pro, what's the battery life on it? Like, what can you do? Like, what would you say you could do with it?
So one of the tests I want to do, I haven't been playing with it enough yet, but one of the tests I want to do is, can I do my day job? Like, can I just, start it up in the morning, do everything I need to do my job, and and how long would it last through the day? This is going to be tricky because it's ARM based a bit, but a lot of stuff works. Like, I can use a Chromium web browser. I can obviously open a terminal, and a lot of stuff that I do is either in one of those two things. It's either in a web page somewhere, or it's in a terminal somewhere, and I can probably make it work. But there are some applications that I know just won't be there because they're not built for ARM, but those are mostly proprietary apps anyway, so there's not a lot I can do about that. I can't fix that problem.
Well, you said
I don't think.
You said you have SD cards. Is it something that you can't boot a USB in ARM, or is that just not available, or how's that work?
I don't know, but I just have a pile of SD cards, and it's more convenient because once you shove an SD card in the little slot, it's flush and there's nothing sticking out that you can knock and so I just find it super convenient. I've got like 128 gig SD cards, micro SD cards that are good enough for a working system, a well-working system with a bit of music on there, and because I won't be able to put the Spotify client on there because there's no ARM build. I could use Spotify Web, or I could use something like NC Spot or something like that, a command line Spotify client. So there's certain workarounds you have to make for stuff that's not available. But I think for most of my job, I'd probably be able to use it, and I think I'd probably get, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours out of it, maybe, depending upon what I'm doing.
The Pinebook Pro, the hard drive is what is it, EMC or drive? I think that's what it's called, and it's a pain in the neck to install an ISO to it. I found personally the easiest way to install it on the hard drive is just to open up the machine, pop it out, and because it's almost like a little flash card, or it's a little flat thing, and I bought an adapter. You just push it into it's a USB adapter, and then plug it into my computer, download the ISO, and just use Etcher to burn it onto that. And then you put it back in the computer, and it's got like 12 screws that are tiny, and the laptop is thicker in the back than it is on the front, so you have to make sure that you put the right screws in the right spot, because I actually pushed one of the screws and bent the metal cover because it was too long, and I was screwing it in, and then I've got like a little dot on the top of the case.
It's kind of nice that you guys get to play with yours. Mine, I have to send the motherboard back.
You're still dealing with that, Barb.
I finally got a thing. Well, here's an RMA number for you. Please send it back to our place in California. And so I now have everything to pack it and ship the motherboard out. I just have to take it out of the computer. But yeah, that's what it was. We kept going round and round, and I finally said, "Look, it's not working. There's no power. Zip! Don't tell me to we want to reflash the eMMC card. I couldn't because there's no power." And so I said, "How am I supposed to do that when there's no power?" Then 3 days later, I got a thing that said, "Oh, how about here's an RMA number. Please send it back to this address." So I'm going to send it back, and with a thing, I want a motherboard that works. Put a little note on it, just to make sure. I don't want the same one back. With my luck, it won't work.
Speaking of power, mine came with I can't remember if it was a European or a US plug for the mains adapter, but conveniently it charges off USB-C as well. So I just use my phone charger to charge it up. I don't even use the one that came with it.
Yeah, you can use and it doesn't really draw very much power anyway when you're charging it, which is nice.
It is nice. Sounds really cool.
Yeah, even the charger that they give you, it's not very powerful because you'll plug it in and it takes forever for the battery to charge. It's like I find it's almost as fast just to do it by USB-C.
Yeah. Cool.
And actually, because of that, you can just use a phone battery, like one of these like batteries that you would use to charge a USB to charge
Yep.
your phone. You can just use that. So I don't think I'm going to have much in the way of battery anxiety with this thing, because I think I'm going to be able to charge it anywhere, because I've got plenty of phone chargers and I just plug those into the USB-C port and I'll be fine.
And I found the battery life to be excellent. I thought it was great. I mean, I didn't do anything intensive because, you know, really I was mainly like taking notes and typing and stuff, but it would last all day.
Well, that seems like a great grab and go device that, you know, you're not typing. It's like a phone kind of, but like a little more advanced. You can type a lot better on it. So, you know, for meetings, running to meetings, that seems like a great thing.
Yeah, well, that's exactly. Also on my list to get at some point.
Yeah,
I
got a big list.
That's what I use mine for is to go on meetings, because it fits in my bag great. It's got a large, you know, for the size of the unit, the screen size is really nice, but it's very compact. So it fits into my little backpack, and you know, and it gets banged around, and I'm not really worried about it because it was like $220.
Nice.
I want to see this list of Rocco's.
Yeah.
Rocco's.
Dude, there's so many
Rocco
things
sitting there. What am I buying this week?
Yeah. No, that's the thing. It's not even about buying things. It's about just things to do, things to get.
To do.
You know, just a whole list of so many different things, dude.
There's not enough time, is there?
There is not. You know, I was apparently on Twitter at some point, and I saw this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, it's a slow day at work. I'm gonna, like, I don't know, read up on Ansible or something like that." And I'm thinking to myself, and I don't ever have that. Like, there is no time like that. So, yeah, that would be awesome if there was more. Colin, can you do something about the time in the day? Can you help me out?
Mate, I'll be just bringing you forward in time, so I wouldn't be asking me.
Hey, we have a new person in chat. Michael Staggs, how are you?
Hi, nice to see you.
It is.
Hey, Michael.
Welcome, Michael.
Good to have you here, brother. DJ, sir, how are you? You're a little low, but we can barely hear you, maybe?
Barely.
How's that? It's really low.
It's still low, yeah.
Oh, it was really low, yeah.
Really low, yeah. Let me see. All right. Maybe that'll work now.
Yeah, that's better.
Much better.
Okay. So I like the Pine Book too. I mean, I've had mine since December. And
DJ?
Yes.
Somehow you clicked out and went low again. I'm not sure what happened. Like you were fine and then it clicked out off again.
Okay. Let me see if it's going down by itself.
Oh, Zoom.
It's probably Zoom and the automatic adjust setting in the audio settings.
Thanks, Zoom.
Yeah, thank you, Zoom. Appreciate that. It knows better.
Well, I'll come back.
Okay.
All
right. Thomas, how are you?
Hi. I'm all right. How about you guys?
Fantastic.
How much have I missed?
Nothing. You didn't miss nothing, Thomas.
You missed the whole show.
Oh, I did? Dang. I knew I should have told Mom that we didn't need to go out to eat tonight.
Right?
Yeah, you don't need to eat.
All right, so I do want to get to some of these emails before we move on, because there are a couple topics that I'd like to get into. But, okay, so this is a random email, and I'm just going to read it out, and you guys make out what you want. David Sanders, he says, the FBI and the NSA have exposed new malware being used by Russian hackers to target Linux operating systems like Linux Mint, Ubuntu, and MX Linux, and Peppermint OS. So that was his email. I guess he just wanted to let us know about that. So,
well, thanks for letting us know.
Yep. There's also another one from Steve. We had talked about Etcher last week when we went through the app list. And remember I had said that, you know, Etcher for me sometimes fails because you'll click burn and it'll just go right through like in 2 seconds and you know it didn't burn anything. And he said he had a similar issue with Etcher and found placing the app image and the ISO in the same folder to work for him, and he hasn't had any further issues. Anybody know why that would be? I mean, it should pick up wherever the folder is, wherever the ISO is. I haven't had a chance to try it, so I don't know.
it sounds almost like a syntax error that whatever script it's using to do that isn't picking up on and is just going straight through. But I could be wrong about that. I don't ever have those errors, and I use error or Etcher almost exclusively to burn ISOs. And I have the latest version. I haven't seen any issues since. I don't know what version you're on. I'm assuming the latest. So
to be honest with you, Thomas, I haven't used it in a while because of those issues from before. So, like, you know, once you start using a program like that and you have a few issues with it, you kind of get leery of it and you just put it aside. It used to be fail-proof, you know? It used to work perfect for me. And then I had, like, probably 3 or 4 times where it did that to me and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I was just like, moving on. And now, being on Pop OS, I have Popsicle and I don't need it. So...
That's an app image. That's an app image, right? Etcher.
Etcher
right?
is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be a containment issue, would it? Or maybe there has some sort of problem in the updates where it's not pointing to maybe because you use Rocco, you use a separate data drive, right? Or you still don't anymore?
Not anymore. For certain folders, I do. Folders that are too big, like videos folder. That's obviously too big for the main drive, so I have that on a data folder. Right. But most of the other home folders are on the main drive. But like I said, I haven't tested this out to see, so I don't know if that's a solution or not. That was his solution for his computer. So,
yeah, it might be a path problem, where it's not finding the total path instead of, I don't know. It's kind of weird.
It's funny because I've used Etcher before. I don't use it. I mean, I have used it a ton. And I just checked on my main machine here. I left the app image in my downloads folder, and then I have a folder in there called ISOs, and that's where I stick all my ISOs. So maybe, Dan, you might be onto something. Maybe it's a path. So it sees that, it can traverse if it's in the same folder, but if it's in a different folder that's outside of where it is, I don't know, because I've never had the problems that you're having, Rocco, with Etcher. I still use DD a lot though, but that could be it.
Yep.
Weird.
All right. Let me find my next email here because with Zoom and all of my open windows here, I seem to have lost the document. But the next one was actually a few weeks ago, and it was, well, I'll just read that one out too. It says, since you stopped making the distro challenge, maybe you should do a big challenge every so often, like Gentoo or Void or NixOS, or maybe even something like software or an ISO. Not sure what that last part means, but
I'd say talk to Derek about that one.
But I'm sorry, but we're not doing Gentoo, okay?
Yeah, there you go.
Figured I'd put that to rest.
Gentoo on a live ISO, so.
Yeah, so there you go.
Gentoo would take the entire show and then some.
And the last thing I wanted to talk about was Linux Spotlight. There was a question on the forums about whether or not, what's going on with Linux Spotlight. I had mentioned in one of the previous biddles that I was switching the release cycle to every 2 weeks, and then had some health issues and all that other good stuff. So, like, the release of Linux Spotlight has been sketchy as of late. So I've been trying to get back into it, and I do have one recorded and edited. So it has not been like on a regular release schedule. But I'm not sure I want to go back to a regular release schedule because of life right now is so busy that I still want it to be enjoyable and fun. And when you put it on a release schedule and then life gets so crazy and busy, it's not as fun or enjoyable because it's more of a get it done type thing. And I don't want it to turn into that. So I want to release it basically when I can. So there, like I said, there is one recorded, edited, and I should be posting it by tomorrow for patrons, and then Wednesday it should come out. Future episodes will come out when I can get them out. So that's basically what it is. So I'm not stopping the Linux spotlight, just, trying to balance it with life and everything else. Okay. Where did DJ go? Did he come back? No, he did not. All right.
No.
So last week we kind of trounced on Linux a little bit just because we were bringing up things that maybe we wouldn't normally talk about. Okay. So we have to give a little bit of love back to Linux. So, Steve, Mo West there, you brought up a possible topic a few weeks back, and I said we would get to it, and we might as well get to it tonight while you're here. And that was, what have you learned in Linux, or what have you learned by using Linux? So maybe we can give some good things about Linux this week and make up for the last, 2 episodes. Steve, why don't you start?
Sounds like fun to me.
Why don't you start?
Well, actually, I guess I could start with something that I've been working on the last couple of weeks here. And that is, I'm trying to learn how to use a static blog site generator. And that's something I don't think I ever would have tried if I had stayed on Windows as my only OS. But I've always wanted to start a blog, and I've been working with Hugo trying to get that to work. And boy, I am surprised. They say how easy it is, but I think it's really easy if you're already a coder and you're familiar with front-end web development. You know all that terminology and how CSS works and how the theme will integrate with the markdown that you're writing, because I have found that when I just want to make one little change, like add my name to every post automatically, oh my, that was a learning curve that I wasn't expecting. So, but it's been fun. I've really enjoyed that, and I think it's my exposure to Linux that really has encouraged that. I could talk about my son as well. Many of you know that I introduced my son when he was heading into 7th grade to Linux for the very first time, and now he's a code contributor for MX Linux, and absolutely loves coding. He does it every single day, every free hour of every day that he has. When he's not doing his homework, when he's not doing his extracurriculars or sports for high school, he is on his computer coding something, and he's always sharing some new coding thing with me that I don't even understand what he's talking about anymore. So he has surpassed his father as far as his Linux knowledge. I just asked him a question today. I was asking him, where are the config files all saved in XFCE? Because I was using MX and I wanted to back up some of my config files. And I'm like, why is some in .local and some in .config? Well, he knew the answer, so.
Yes, but he wouldn't have even been there had you not started him down that path, so. That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun because, he's a kid, so he's got all this time to read, and he actually thinks it's cool to, download those big PDFs from like Linux docs sites and just read through documentation and different books on Linux programming. And boy, that stuff would put me to sleep in a heartbeat, but he likes to slug through it.
All right. Well, for those of you who don't know how this works, when we do something like this, we just ask you if you want to jump in. You can, jump in as the conversation goes along. If there's no spot for you to jump in, you can just use the Zoom raise your hand little thingy, and we will end up calling on you. For me, Steve, I would say that I would know nothing about video editing. I may not know anything still about video editing, but I've learned what I know because of doing this on Linux. And I think that the one thing that I would love to learn more is the audio side of it. I know like editing podcast in a certain form. So like, I don't know it from start to finish. Like, it's almost like you go to school and you drop in like 3rd grade and you get a little bit, and then you drop in 5th grade and get a little bit. And that's how I piece it together as far as editing audio. But I wish I knew the whole thing. But again, there's so many things you want to do and so little time to actually do them. And I think so video editing would be the one thing that I did learn from Linux. and audio editing would be the one thing that I'd still want to learn. Computer Kid, go ahead.
Everything I know about computers, basically, like 90% of it at least. I'd only been using computers, I wouldn't say lightly, but I hadn't been doing much. I was basically just messing with all the settings in the control panel Windows area. And then after I broke it for a few times, I stumbled upon Linux, and that's a whole different story. But then I got into Linux, and there was just so much more to customize, and so much more to build, so much more to set up. And then it just basically gradually taught me everything I know about computers at this point, or led me to places to learn that stuff.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, learning at your age, I'm pretty jealous, honestly. Not that I was that much older, I guess, when I started really getting into it. I mean, I had been playing with computers since I was probably younger than you are. But as far as Linux, I wasn't until at least, I was teenage anyway. So very cool. Big Pod, go ahead. Get your hand up.
Well, I learned quite a lot from Linux, mostly about the intricacies of how computers work. I knew in general how they work from school, but before I started using Linux, I didn't know anything about how to package your program, how that all things work, and how kernels are made and all that. So that is one thing I really took from Linux, is how the system actually works, how it's put together. But well, in the last few weeks, few months, I really got into containers. So that's another thing I learned because of Linux. Because if I wouldn't be doing Linux, I wouldn't be interested in servers. I wouldn't be interested in containers. And on the same note, I learned packaging because I started doing Linux stuff. I wanted to, even those packages didn't have packages in the repository, I wanted to have them at least managed by the package manager. So I started to learn how to do packaging. Now that's one of the few things I really like to do on computers. I would package all day if I had something to package.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. That's something I definitely learned. Packaging and VMs, containers, those things. I would have never explored that had I not gotten into Linux for sure. Daniel, go ahead. You got your hand up.
Yeah. So let's see. I've learned that I like to be able to customize my experience. You know, trying on Windows is miserable. So like you give up after a minute. And then I discovered Linux and found out that it was great to be able to like customize it and make it look the way that I wanted to. Now that inevitably led me to the fact that I like tiling window managers and all this other kind of crazy nonsense that some people just don't dig too much. But the tiling experience just seems to fit very well for me. But I also realized that I learned how an operating system really should work, right? Like, and the fact that Linux gives you the ability to get behind the scenes so easily so that you can learn all of that stuff. I'll agree with a couple of the other folks too. Like all of my knowledge based around servers, the only reason I got into wanting to play with servers is because of Linux, because it's so easy to set them up. Like I've got a DigitalOcean account and I can just spin up Linux servers on the fly and play with them and break them. And not something I've done a lot lately, but it's just great to be able to like have an experience where I can just tinker and play and just learn the inner workings of it. So, yeah, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, Thomas.
So Linux has really shaped how I use my computer in general. When I got into Linux, I was really young. I was still in middle school. And at the time, I wasn't even interested in coding yet. And I'd never touched command line or anything like that. As far as I was concerned, the inner workings of software was the domain of the gods, and I knew nothing, and it was no place for me. And 2 years later, I was learning to code in order to attempt to port a Linux app to Android. I was trying to port Unity 8 to Android, and I ultimately failed, but it's what first piqued my interest in coding, is getting into the core of how these things work and seeing that I can tell a computer what I want it to do, and it will do exactly that, no more, no less. And if I had stayed on Windows, I would have never been able to do that. If I'd stayed on Windows, I would have had no control over my updates. And since I'm on Linux, I don't have to deal with that. I literally have times where my friends are complaining about updates. And they're like, oh yeah, I got to go home and turn on my computer, leave it on all night in order to update. And I'm like, ha, you have to wait all night for your updates? I literally run them because I'm bored. And I enjoy watching the text just fly across the screen. It took computing from something that I did because I had to do it to something that I do because I love to do it. And if it weren't for Linux, I would not be a programmer. I would not be running my own server. I would not be developing my own distro. I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff. I wouldn't know where to go with my life. I'd probably be in the military right now because that was my plan at the time. And I think, I think this is a better place for me because me in the military would not work out. Military is great, but me in the military, I would die.
All right. Very nice. Hesnix, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hopefully I got my mic fixed and it sounds a bit better now.
Yep.
Good. You were right. My Rocco was pulling from the webcam. I just didn't know how to set it at first. I go back quite a ways with computers. My first operating system was CP/M. So if anyone's about that old, Linux, my Linux journey has been relearning how to do a whole lot on a computer in a different way up until the last few years when I started to rebuild my own ISOs, respin distributions. So that's a lot of my real new learning is based around taking other distributions and customizing them. Bash scripting came about because of that. Packaging came about because of that. But from 1981 to about 2005, yeah, I've had CP/M, DOS, Windows, OS2, BOS, QNX, and finally settling on Linux. So by the time I got to Linux, I knew a lot about computers beforehand, but the recent learning has all been ISO building related.
Cool. That's pretty neat. Alan, go ahead.
So I think the thing that changed for me was realizing that I could change the software. And I don't consider myself a developer. And I know some people, think, if you write a shell script, that made you a developer. But I see myself very different from some of the people who, create the Linux desktop. I don't see how I could do that. And I know it's just time and effort and knowledge and all these little easy things. But I was watching a live stream earlier on today of one of the upstream GNOME developers, and he was processing bug reports and doing little patches and rebuilding software. And he did a software release of whatever it was, GNOME settings or something, I think it was. It was just fascinating watching what I would call a real developer do their stuff. But I have found that there have been occasions where I've wanted to change something, and you can go and get the source code and rebuild the thing. Once you figure out how to build the thing, you can rebuild it. And there was something on Friday I wanted to change, and I just thought, well, why don't I just change it? I don't have to go and ask the developer. I could just change it myself. And so I just went and got the source code and just grubbed around. And the source code is written in Golang, and I've not written a Golang program myself. I've done a couple of tutorials, but that's about it. And I just grubbed around in the source code and was like, that's the line I need to change, because it kind of looks vaguely like the thing I want, and changed one number to a different number, and then just followed the instructions to rebuild it. And ta-da, I'm now a software developer because I changed one line in a piece of software. But it worked. And that mentality that you are empowered to change the software by going and getting the source code, fiddling with it, rebuilding it. I don't have to contribute that patch upstream, because it's just for my own personal benefit. I don't have to do a software release. I don't have to take part in that software project. All I wanted to do was change something for my own personal benefit. So I downloaded the source code, modified it, built it, installed it, and I'm happy. And I think more people should feel empowered that the software is out there and the source code is out there. Go and get it and tweak the software to your heart's content for yourself.
Well, I learned a long time ago, because I used to do that with themes and whatnot. I would go and change the colors of, and I learned a long time ago that I shouldn't do that stuff, because I just mess it up even further.
No, it's great that you can, though. I think there's a lot of value in that, and you're right. It is empowering. So, yeah, that's good advice. Dale, go right ahead.
Well, mine started out really as customizing, because back in, I can't remember exactly when window blinds came out, but I'm thinking it had to have been mid-90s, 98 maybe, 99. And it was cool, but it wasn't very stable. Not to say that the operating system it was running on was stable to begin with, but it made it even less stable, at least in my experience. And so then I learned you can change your shell out, and you can change your display manager. You can change all the components in there. And I thought, this is pretty cool. And oddly, I didn't really start doing much compiling or anything like that on Linux. It was mostly I had two OpenBSD boxes, and I had this Comtrol Rocket Port card that I had from when I used to run a BBS on OS2 Warp. So I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing? And so I pretty much learned how to compile, because they had the driver for SCO Unix and HPUX and all these, because it was intended for IT uses. So I was able to compile it under Slackware, and I also compiled it originally under OpenBSD. But then once I started getting into Linux more, I learned how to compile programs, because in school I tried doing programming and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I tried with the basic and didn't get real far, and I had some friends that were learning C and couldn't get around it. And I looked at assembler, and I think I got 4 pages into it and took the book back to Borders and exchanged it for another book, because I'm like, okay, move this memory register to here and move the So really, what I really gained from Linux is I actually got to feed my desire to do programming without actually having to write the code, because I learned about static libraries and dynamic libraries and what they're used for and why you would use them in certain instances and why you wouldn't use them in other instances. And also back then, you did a lot of kernel compiling, because when you only had like 2 megabytes of RAM, a megabyte of RAM on a computer, you wanted to take out all the SCSI drivers that you didn't need. You wanted to take out all the ISDN drivers you didn't need to try to slim your kernel down. And so that's pretty much what I've learned.
So many people have such a long history in Linux, and like I didn't start till late, I think. I'm like late starter in this room. Barbara, go ahead.
Same here, Rocco.
They're right here. Right here. So I'm not jangling on by the microphone. I came from the world of, mind you, shows you how old I am. As I tell my students, I'm older than dirt. I came from the programming world of System 360 and System 370 IBM mainframes, and yeah, I could whiz around whatever and write all the JCL code to get my stupid PL1 program to work fine. Then when PCs came out, it was like, I have control, and so it kept going from that. And then I learned, I got into using Unix because I was doing consulting work and supporting several businesses where they were using Unix. So I had it on one machine, and then I ended up working in an ISP, a local ISP back in '94. And that was my first exposure to Linux. From knowing Unix, it was an easy switch right in. And of course, then we switched everything to Slackware. And that was so much fun. But what the thing is, and then I went on and used Windows and whatever, but I went back to Linux in 2011 because I have full control. Having gone the route of using all these different things, I like the fact that I have full control over my system. I can do what I want to it, or if I break it, I break it. It's not like with Windows, you can only do so much. With Mac OS, you can only do so much. If I want to just totally change everything around and I want to try this and try that, I can. And I can still do my programming. I can still throw up a web page and this environment. I don't have to use anything. I do almost all my work. In fact, I do all my work in Linux. And it's my daily driver for that reason. I have total control. And that to me is what, having gone from where, you have to get permission to run this, to compile this program, to, you have to call the computer center and get permission. Was a pain in the neck. To having total control. I think that's what I've gotten out of it, is that I have control, which is, maybe I am a control freak that way, but that's probably why I was a good systems administrator when I worked at library systems at Binghamton University. But I like that. That's what I like. Freedom. It really boils down to freedom.
Mitchell in chat pretty much said the same thing. I'm not a programmer by any means, but Linux taught me that I can still have control over my computer, still tweak and modify things to my liking. Just a little effort, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, and I do come from the world of programming. And what's nice is that I just like it. It makes me feel more comfortable in using my machine. And I don't have to worry about a lot of extraneous nonsense because it's not there. And I don't have to fight the system to get it to do what I want.
Right. All right, Daniel Stevenson, you're up.
So when I got into Linux, I was in middle school, and I had started getting into these computers are cool and everything, and I I done like I learned some HTML, and I had at that point for about a year I'd run Linux. I'd run Puppy Linux on my personal computer because it's basically the only thing that would run. It was an old recycle thing that my dad got from work. But so then I remembered, oh yeah, this Linux thing, and I had a second hard drive in my current computer that had, I think, Windows XP. So I installed Ubuntu 13.04, and that was fun. And then and what was great about it is that it's you can basically do everything there. Like, you can have the same OS on, on this your laptop and the server, and it's a Unix like operating system. So it's basically the kind of operating system that the world was that most things were designed to work on in the first place. Like a lot of the conventions we have came from there, which means that when I got this book on C, it was my mom's old textbook from college, and I wanted to start learning how to program, and she had this. Then it worked. Like I could do this stuff, like when it tells you to compile with CC on the command line. I had to figure out that I had to type GCC, not CC, but it worked. And then like getting into more, other technical stuff, then it all works on Linux. And also as a kid and not having, not having much of a disposable income, then most of this stuff was also available for free. So I could learn a whole lot of stuff, just at whatever I put my mind to, I could probably learn it. That was awesome.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. Dave Jones, go right ahead.
My journey into Linux could be considered somewhat long. My first computer started with the Commodore VIC-20 way back when I was still in grade school, with a whole 3K of RAM, and no hard drive. So
had a cassette tape.
Oh, I didn't even have that.
Oh
so
man, was that great!
Spend hours typing BASIC, and I actually remember I used to get the VIC-20 magazine, and they had a program on the calendar, and I spent hours typing that and then trying to find all the mistypes I did and everything, and I got it working. And I was so proud that I could see like the day of the week my birthday was, both back in at any year there was. And I ran into the living room to tell my parents. I was like, look at this, you got to see this. And I was so excited. And then later on, when I was in high school, I got a Tandy TRS-80 color computer with a whole 512K of RAM.
Yeah.
But I did get a floppy disk drive, and then I had a friend in school who also had the same computer, and we would like we had like not eat lunch and pool our lunch money together so we could buy a stack of the 5 1/4 inch floppy disks, the one-sided ones. And then we would take a pair of scissors and a hole puncher, and we would punch out the notches to make them double-sided. And then we would split the cost in buying them. And then we would notch out the cutouts.
Nice.
And we would make them double-sided and split them. And at the same time, when I got the computer, we got that because my father had a friend at work who had one, and he recommended it. And he also had a stack of floppies with the old Atari games.
Nice.
Like Donkey Kong, Space Invaders, all of them that he made backups of, and he gave my father. So I then started going to groups and stuff where we were sharing these discs, and I really got into the mindset of software being, although it legitimately wasn't, but the software being free and being able to be traded and given for free and everything. So that instilled a mindset with me. So then as I got older and started using Windows and everything, and you had to pay for the software, and that bothered me a lot that it had gotten like that. And then when I became a librarian, and the biggest mantra for libraries is free and equal access to information for all. And I always felt the same thing really should pertain to a lot of software. And I was talking to the computer guy because I wasn't during that time I was doing a little bit with Windows, but not a whole lot with computers because my duties at the library were not with that. But I was talking to the computer guy and he actually mentioned Linux and he was talking about it and everything. And he was mentioning Mandrake. And he had actually gave me a disk that I had tried out a little bit. And I really, really liked the idea. But at the time, the computer I had at home had one of those Win modems in it. And it just did not work with I couldn't get online. And by that time, we had gotten into the internet. And so I would always like put Linux on it, but then take it off so I could use and put Windows back on so I could use the internet.
Right.
But then as my duties grew and I started, I always then got the itch for Linux. And then one day somebody told me about Ubuntu and how you could put the Wooby on Windows to try it out. And I got hooked. That was it. And then I actually installed Feisty Fawn onto my computer. And at that time, I didn't know anything about partitioning. So I just wiped out the hard drive, put it in, and it was a revelation. And I know it had to be in the summer because soon after I did that, I got, or maybe it was in the fall because soon after I got that, I got the little upgrade notification to go to Gusty Gibbon. And, but that really stuck with me, the whole idea about all this free software that was available to everyone. And ever since then, I would dabble between Windows and Linux. And then in 2014, Martin Windpress on Linux Unplugged had announced the turning on of the servers for Windows Mate. And I downloaded that, tried it out, and that became my main operating system ever since. And luckily I switched positions at my job where I got in charge of the computer. So then I was like, oh, I'm not using Windows. I'm just going to put Linux on my computer and then start sticking it on wherever I could. And I always try to promote it because of that factor, the free and equal access to the software. I mean, I'm not against, if you find something that's proprietary and you like it, to contribute to it or maybe even pay for it. But the whole idea that there's all this software that's available, that's free, and anybody can have it, even the operating system, that is so important to me. And that's what keeps me using Linux and loving it.
Nice. Thanks, Dave. That's a great story. Jinda, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Dave there. It's the same kind of thing for me. The software is free, and it just opens up so many doors for the things that I just want to learn to, become a better person and try to, expand my knowledge. I mean, I can remember a few years ago, I fired up a computer and it, it said, Pixie boot, boot from, and why? What's that? And with a few hours, I was doing it myself, and I had my own Pixie boot server. I need one like I need a hole in the head, but
yeah, everybody's got to have one of those at home.
Right, everybody's got to have one of those at home.
It's on the bucket list.
Right, yeah, it's on the bucket list. But that's the point of Linux. I can sit here and and make a Volumo server, and if I don't like it, I can make a root audio server. You know what I mean? And listen to my music. If I want a Plex server, I can make that. If I want an Open Media Vault, or if I get sick of that, I can, there's just, the door was so much more open to be able to learn stuff. And, these younger guys don't understand, YouTube wasn't around forever, and being able to have all this at my fingertips and be able to find anything that I want to learn about. From, like you said, you wanted a video edit, if you want to do 3D modeling, you want to make a full 3D movie as good as Shrek, you can download Blender and go do it. I'm not saying I can, but you could.
But you could. You totally could.
You totally could. And that's that. I think that you totally could thing is probably one of the best things about Linux. You totally could do this.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, Steve.
Good evening, gentlemen. And
Good evening.
I mean, for me, you get all the technical stuff. For me, Linux, what it done for me personally, I mean, I can never talk about enough. It had opened doors for me in ways to develop my personal self by doing streams and doing videos, and I've had opportunities at work. I'm coming up on my 39th year at my company.
Wow,
And
nice.
in the last five years have been probably my biggest development, you know, and I'm going to be 64 this year, so I'm a late bloomer. It just by getting into something that I really enjoy, that took me somewhere, you know. I got to meet all you great friends, you know, a fantastic community, but personally, I mean, the development that I felt that I've gone through. I mean, I'm a go-to person in my district. I'm constantly being called by all my peers, you know, and helping them in that. Things that, you know, I can't say Linux did that per se, but it's because I found something that was incredibly enjoyable for me, and it opened up doors that I never imagined, you know. And it's fun. It's aggravating at times, yes, but you know, it just opened up so many doors personally that um, I just find it amazing. You know, maybe people find that with all sorts of hobbies that they have, but that's what it's done for me. I mean, it's just been a fantastic personal journey.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Steve, because think about it now. If it wasn't for Linux, none of us would be here right at this moment doing this chat. So that is an awesome thing.
You know, the other thing, I'm sorry, Steve. I was going to say, because to your point, Steve, I was going to say, when you think about this, though, I always compare it to when I look at Linux over a decade ago, or I started in 2006, and you look at where it is now, you couldn't really do, as a novice, a lot of the things with Linux back then, or would even desire to, that you want to do now. And I think that's why it gets frustrating, is because there's something about it that draws you to want to look under the hood more and mess with it. And 9 times out of 10, the pains that come with Linux now are because we cause them, because we're always messing with it or doing something. Oh, yeah. But that's actually, it's half of the frustrating fun of it, is the way I look at it, you know. And it has been wonderful. And there's all these residual perks that have come with it, like we said, the friendships. And the thing is, you know, you talk about like this young man, computer kid at his age. Look at us old guys have gotten reinvigorated with stuff, you know, that it's, you got more time on your hands now, but then it's like, you know, you're, as it was mentioned in the chat earlier, you know, your span isn't always there sometimes, to your attention span, but it's been fabulous. It's been fabulous.
Yep. Leah, you want to jump in on this at all?
Okay, you got to give me the prompt again, because it feels like we're talking about our Linux history and
this is basically a topic of what you've learned in Linux or what you've learned by using Linux. Like last week, we kind of ripped on Linux, like of things we do that would lose our Linux card, but this week we're kind of giving it the old high treatment of, you know, what have we learned in Linux or from it?
Everything. Actually, I owe a lot of where I'm at in my current job to where I was in Linux 10 years ago, you know, where it was just starting out, installing distro after distro after distro, and the stuff that you learn, you know, you don't even realize you learn it, right? I mean, you didn't realize that you understood how, and of course it escapes me right now. What's the utility that you use in the command line to do partitions? Fdisk.
Fdisk.
Yeah, Fdisk. Right? I mean, you don't even realize that you understand how Fdisk works, and then one day you're in the command line, you're like Fdisk and M and P and N, and you go through these things, and it's just so I think that's the best thing about Linux. You don't realize you're learning it because you're having so much fun. I think that's where it comes down to it for me, that everything that I do in Linux is fun and dumb a lot of times. Let me tell you something.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
right
about.
before. So I'm getting ready. Right, I've got some stuff in an air fryer right now. And I'm like, you know what I should do? I should go on Big Daddy Linux real quick. But you know what I've been thinking about? I've been thinking about turning off the meltdown and Spectre mitigations because I need a little more oomph out of my CPU, right? You know when I should do that? Right before I need to be on video and audio chat, and it might be important for me to, not just have anything crash. So I did check LSCPU, right? Another one of those commands that you just learn, and I'm vulnerable to everything again, guys. But I did get my 10% performance back, so there's that. I think that's it. Just overall, you learn so much and you don't even realize it. And now I teach Linux courses that talk about these commands in how to do it in a professional capacity kind of way. And I owe that all to distro hopping and messing around with it and breaking it over and over and over again.
Well, it's funny because all I heard before I had installed Arch was you'll learn so much as if you go to and you install Arch by scratch. So I did, and I would always say after that, I did it 3 times, and I would always say after that I did a lot of copying and pasting, and I did do a lot of copying and pasting from like the Arch Wiki or from other places. But you're right, Leo. You do learn as you go, even subconsciously. You don't realize you're learning it, but you do learn it as you go, even on your first, second, or third Arch install.
Yeah, for all the crap I give those guys, because some of them will tend to tell that to straight newbies that have no idea what they're doing.
No, it's not. It's not for.
But
no.
But even if you do that, and even if that person decides that they want to even try it out, you're gonna learn you hate putting it together by scratch for sure. So you're gonna learn something, and I think overall maybe that's where you got to start, right? You start with Arch, and then you come back to Ubuntu or Fedora or something. And
I don't
you're
know
like,
if you want to start there.
So much better.
I mean, I think a
This is
lot of
great.
people
This is
progress that
Ubuntu
way.
is fantastic. It's a million times better than I thought it'd be, right? Because I don't have to build it myself.
That's the beauty.
All right, Tony, you're up.
I've got to quote Steve's very own expression when he says, "Come for the Linux, but stay for the community." I think a big part of Linux and my enjoyment in using it, which is very frustrating at times, but it's the community, it's this program and the other bits and pieces that keep me going with it because it's something that I enjoy. I've never had that with Mac. I've never had that with Windows. The distro hopping thing is a bit of a nightmare. I swapped systems about a dozen times this weekend. This system, I'm back to Linux Mint again. This system is partially set up sufficiently enough to do this. I didn't have time to do the rest of it because I hopped at the last minute due to a problem. And I find Linux can be very frustrating at times. But then when you get a system that works well, it's fantastic. It's so much better than Mac, in my opinion, and so much better than Windows. And that's what keeps me in it, really. I'll forgive it, the problems that you get occasionally, because at the end of the day, it's worth the effort.
Yep. All right. Anybody else want to get in on this topic at all? Michael, go ahead. You're on mute yet, Michael.
Am I still muted?
Nope, you're good. Go ahead.
You're good.
Okay, I think one thing that I've gotten from Linux, it's changed the paradigm for me. Under Windows, you turn the computer on, you do your work, you turn the computer off. With Linux, I've got 3 machines here on 24/7. I can SSH to any of them. I can do work on, I leave them on. Every single one of those is running Linux. And that's really been something, it's liberated me from being stuck to one machine and allowed me to, do things. I can automate things. I've got everything working together. I can go somewhere else and log into my desktop, and it's really changed the whole paradigm for me.
Yep. There are so many things that we could list out that are awesome that you learn in Linux and you learn from Linux and you just don't realize that you're doing it. It's awesome. Anybody else want to get in? Bill, I'm calling you out. Bill.
Am I here?
You are, sir.
Yep,
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. We got some freshly roasted hatch green chilies, and I made up burgers, and I put. I guess to other people, were not happy with the level of that I put chilies into the ground beef, so I had to make separate burgers for other people.
Still
enough.
sounds really good though.
And then I'm celebrating. I haven't had a Molson Canadian in many years, so I have a Molson Canadian here to celebrate my New Mexican hatch chilies, Molson Canadian. And sorry, I completely derailed the subject. So I'm sorry.
You did, Bill. You did.
My mouth
Welcome
is
to the
watering
Linux
now,
Food
Bill.
Network.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks.
So what was the question?
The question was, what have you learned from Linux, or what have you learned by using Linux?
I mean, that's a very open question. Because I've done a lot of things with Linux that are, enterprise server level, and that's where I've learned the most. And then I forgot all that when I switched job roles, when you didn't touch it anymore. And then I switched off and didn't touch desktop Linux for a long time. And desktop Linux changed radically. And when I came back to it, it's so much better than it was, but it still has stuff that it has to do. But we're getting there, and there are great and not so great communities behind things. And we have to generate and take the good with the bad and realize that some of the things that are happening with right now, there's this hubbubaloo about Facebook joining the Linux Foundation as a platinum member. And Facebook, like them or not, use Linux a lot. And a lot of good stuff comes from these big companies that goes into kernel development. And if you take some time and look at the kernel commits and see how many of those commits are coming from big companies and their employees who may or may not be working on it as a full-time job, they may be doing it in their off time as a passion. Still, all of that stuff makes it better for you and me on the desktop. And we don't think about that sometimes.
Yep.
The file system stuff is amazing. And I know we make fun of ButterFS. And, you had ZFS with Oracle and Sun. But those things coming in are game changers because you get stuff like snapshotting. And almost everything that we're doing that we complain about is system breakage. And whether you're using Arch, Ubuntu, Debian, something breaks because of an update. But if you have simple rollbacks, it was a game changer when I was doing enterprise stuff. When we got snapshotting and you're running off like a gold master copy, something breaks, you just boom, go back, we're done. I don't have to troubleshoot. I don't have to spend 8 hours when I get called at 2 o'clock in the morning. And if you're doing it on a desktop system, and let's say there's a kernel update, and you have an NVIDIA card or something else and it breaks it, you don't have to worry about going through and doing this. You just go into Grub if you're using something like the ZSys stuff that's coming through Ubuntu. Go into Grub, go back to your previous version, boom. ButterFS has the same thing, whether Fedora is going that way. And their new versions, OpenSUSE has all that stuff built into Zipper. And too bad Nate's not here to tell me what command it would be. That stuff is amazing, and it's game changing. So that's what I really get out of it. There's, and it's not just us doing it. And then you look at stuff like Silverblue or Ubuntu Core that are based on the immutable file systems. These are just amazing, cool technologies. And that's what I get about it. Sorry.
I'd like to point out that the OpenSUSE command is snapper rollback.
Oh, there you go.
Well, Dan, do you think we made up for our error of our ways
Oh, yeah, I
last
hope
week?
so. I think we had some good stories here, though. I mean, and honestly, we hit on one of the biggest things, our community, right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Well, there was an actual live stream purchase. I mean, I know Schickel wasn't here, but Kevin, he's not here. He left for some reason. I wanted him to tell us about his live stream purchase that he made, but maybe he'll tell you in Telegram. But Computer Kid, you got some new hardware coming, don't you?
Yeah, it's not a live stream purchase. It happened a few days ago, but it's still a purchase and it's still computer related. It's actually a CPU. So I'm thinking about doing a Leo and deleting all my mitigations. Might make it
Do
run
it.
faster.
Do it.
What are you getting?
So this laptop right here I'm talking to you on it's like my comfortable laptop. I've been using it for a while. Everything works mostly.
What is it?
And it's a older Dell Inspiron 15 from I'm pretty sure it's from 2015. I think that's what that's what the 15 in the name means. It is it's not the fastest machine. It came in 3 tiers of CPU, Pentium, i3, and i5. Pentium obviously being the lowest level, and I got handed down the Pentium, so it's pretty slow. So what I'm buying is the I looked into what the actual model number of the i5 that would come with it if you bought it with the i5 would be. Found some of those on eBay and bought it. So it's CPUs and laptops are tricky because with the race to get it thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, people are having trouble making like the little sockets anymore that go onto the motherboards. So these days you solder the CPUs straight on, meaning they're not changeable. So you can't upgrade them I guess you could, but you'd have to replace the entire motherboard.
Right.
It's thinner, but it's not necessarily better for the upgrade cycle. Now this is obviously different in desktops because you got all that space. But anyways, this laptop, it's old enough. It's still pretty chunky, just under an inch, but maybe a little under an inch. It has a socket in it. I have actually cleaned out the fans before, found the CPU, so it's in a socket. And I'm pretty sure I can pop the CPU that's in the CPU that's in it. I can just pop that one out and stick the new one in. Theoretically, I hope it's gonna work. If it does work, it's a great upgrade, and this i5 is old enough. It was literally only $20 shipping and everything.
Cool.
But what I get is this Pentium wasn't able to do boosting. Now I'm able to boost up to 3 gigahertz. So that's nice. My base clock increases by like 0.10 to 0.20 gigahertz, I think. And now with the i5, I can do virtual machines. Finally.
Yeah.
I couldn't do virtual machines on the CPU. This is gonna be fun. Maybe I can even distro hop without leaving one machine.
Nice.
And now I can do hyper-threading. So now I've got, rather than 2 cores, 2 threads, I've got 2 cores, 4 threads. And whatever the memory thing is that's integrated into the CPU, I don't really know what that is. That gets bigger, so I guess that's good.
Yeah, it's your
And
cache.
the
There's your
graphics
cache.
stack. Yeah, that. But the graphics stack also gets updated because I'm on integrated graphics. Supposed to come on Tuesday or Wednesday, so wish me luck. I'm gonna do some laptop surgery then. And I got some Noctua paste from the last time I changed the thermal paste on this CPU because it was getting old. The paste was getting all crusty, and it actually, there's a noticeable increase in performance if the paste hasn't been changed recently because it heats up less, the fan has to turn on less, all that nice stuff. So I'm going to use some of that. I don't have a fancy Noctua fan because it's a laptop, but they make some decent paste, I heard.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
They do.
Yep. So that's my plan for Tuesday.
Awesome. Well, you will have to keep us posted on the results of that because I'm interested.
You can make a video.
I might.
Come on, do it. Do it.
I can make a stop motion video.
Hey,
awesome.
DJ, you have anything you want to add to this conversation?
If my mic's working.
It is.
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah, I'd say the Linux has taught me to read the logs. That's that's my
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
True.
Yeah.
Well, DJ, you put Colin had mentioned it earlier tonight, and you put out a video, was it 2 days ago, 3 days ago, about can I move my home directory to another disk?
Yes.
So what did you find out? Can we move our home directory to another disk?
I moved, so I'm trying to get out of Fedora's way right now because they're breaking things. So
No lies.
I put up Pop OS, running 2004, and I just took my home directory and just bundled it up in a tar file and then unraveled it on top of the drive for Pop OS and reinstalled, installed the software that I was missing. All the configuration is the same for OBS. All that works. My configs for my audio DAW works. Jax works. I didn't have to really do anything other than just make sure I had the software laid back down again. I
Nice.
even have my controls for the tweaks that I'd set up and some of the GNOME extensions, even those are working. So I didn't have to do anything really. It works. I think if you're going up, you're going to have a problem. I think if you're trying to go down, you might run into issues because the configs aren't always,
right.
They're not always the same going down, but going
Right.
up, chances are it'll still work.
I used to do that all the time. I used to always have a separate home partition, basically, and it would just be a data drive, and the system would be on a different drive in the home. But I guess I got out of it. I bought a bigger hard drive for the main drive, so I allowed some of my important stuff to be on the main drive. And then, like I said, I just linked to like the larger folders, like the videos folders, because they got a ton of stuff in them. But I got out of practice of having it on a separate drive. I should go back to that.
It makes it a lot easier if you want to, even if you want to upgrade your existing system, it makes it a lot easier.
Yep.
So if something does go wrong and you have to re-scratch it, it's not a big deal.
You just
Not
yeet one partition on there.
I don't know if I would recommend doing a partition, because if you're laying down a new OS distribution and you're taking the default methods for installation, it's going to wipe your partition out.
Yep.
So I would put it on a separate hard drive. I wouldn't take that chance. I mean, if you'll probably catch it, but if you don't, it's going to blow it away on you.
Yeah, well, I always figured, because I always put it on a separate drive, because I figured if I wear out the main drive from distro hopping or something happens to the drive because of the constant wear on it, then I'm going to lose my home folder anyway. So I just always put it on a different drive.
Right.
Backups.
Plus, you do gain a little bit of performance because you are introducing some additional parallel I/O channels.
Right.
Yeah, that you wouldn't have otherwise. You're not competing with the OS.
Right. All right. Anybody else want to jump into this conversation about what you've learned about Linux before we move on?
Well, I've got a confession to make. I read the logs during the week that helped me solve a problem. So reading logs can help. Who would have thought?
Well done, Colin. Well done.
On our Fedora episode, that was the way that I figured out that fprintd thing on Linux user space. That's all it was. Just watch what was it? General Control -F for follow, and then just got a password prompt, and you'd watch it, fprintd, and then PAM, and then exactly. So logs, 100%.
I'm sorry, Leo, I didn't hear what was that podcast you heard that on?
Linux user space. I don't know. It's a pretty unknown underground. Not a lot of people know about it, but
we're underground. Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. Anyway,
I have to say that the Telegram channel has been booming recently. Like, I leave and there's 200 messages when I come back.
Dan, how can they get to that Telegram channel?
They can get to that by linuxuserspace.show/telegram. That'll get you there. Or t.me Linux user space.
Yep.
That'll work too.
Just throwing it out there. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to
make a comment. First of all, Computer Kid, that sounds like an awesome project that you're doing, upgrading your processor. And I'd love to hear your methodology on how you keep everything straight and organized so that you don't forget a screw to put back into the laptop. Having taken apart a few laptops on my own completely and tearing them all down, that's always a task. So good luck on that. And then I was wondering if I could just say something about the latest Linux user space podcast.
Do it.
Yeah, go for it.
You made my heart hurt.
I'm sorry, dude.
All that negativity towards Fedora. Oh man, that was a tough one to listen to. And I have not had a single one of the problems you guys mentioned.
I tried to bring it back, but
dude, I so wanted to have a good experience on Fedora. I mean, like I said in the show, Leo's always saying about how great Fedora is. All of these other people were talking about how great Fedora is. Bradley in the Telegram group, that's all he runs. He switched everything over to Fedora. I so wanted to have a good experience. I just didn't. And I'm not sure why.
I think a lot of it was that if Fedora detects that you have a fingerprint reader, it's just going to add fprintd and the PAM stuff. And if for some reason
Leo,
your
this
fingerprint
was
reader doesn't get used, it's just going to hang.
This was a desktop though that I put it on, and it's like it has
okay.
no fingerprint reader whatsoever.
No, we did talk about that. That's right.
And Rocco, did you have the password laggy stuff that the rest of them were experiencing with the fingerprint
Yes.
reader? Because that is not something that I've had an issue with. And now I don't have a fingerprint reader on the machine that I run it on, but
I still
I've never
think
had that issue.
it has to do with some recent update that Fedora did that has, like, I'm just going to go on a gut feeling and say that if I would have installed Fedora 32 when it came out, I don't think I would have ran into these issues. I just think it's a recent update that's messed some certain things up, and I'm sure that they're going to fix it. But right now, dude, my computer was unusable. There was no way I could use that machine because everything, whether you opened the settings or anything that you did, just hesitated for a good 20, 25 seconds. It was very frustrating.
Yeah, I was having some problems with it too. Was installing Fedora on a laptop that I just got, and was, normally installing the NVIDIA drivers is no big deal, but the compiler's out of sync with the NVIDIA drivers, and so there was no way to get it installed. I tried the Fedora way, and it stopped it because of the library mismatch. I tried it the NVIDIA way, and it stopped it because of the compiler mismatch. So, like I said, they're breaking things right now. And I think that's because of 33.
Right.
Yep.
I figured out the problem. It's Joe. Blame him.
It's Joe. You're right, Computer Kid. It is.
Yeah, especially because he's not here.
But Steve, so I mean, I know that we were hard on Fedora, but we wanted to be honest too. Like this is our experience.
I just had to say, you made my heart bleed today. I listened to the episode today before coming on, and I'm just like, oh man, that hurts.
I think here that the real problem, the reason you had problems with Fedora is because you weren't running Fedora already. That was your mistake.
Was that my mistake? Yeah.
Actually, that is not really far from the truth because on my desktop I had Fedora 31 and I'd been running that for months. Upgraded to Fedora 32, everything just got incrementally better, which was fantastic. And this was the reason why I was singing the praises of Fedora because, I mean, when that happened, my gaming was fantastic, even more fantastic than it already was. And so, I started to become a bit of a Fedora zealot for a little bit. And yeah, I mean, that's where this whole thing started from. And it's good. But I even ran into the fprintd and the settings slowdown issues as well on my laptop. So I don't know what it is. I fixed we fixed the password slowdown, but the settings thing still stuck around. I could never figure that one out.
And
in the log.
And the time was off. And,
you couldn't change
time
your
zone.
Zone. Yeah.
Weird.
Man, I wish I had been around for that, but since how I am a die in the wool Fedora person as well. But I told you guys before, journal control -F is probably one of the best commands you could ever have on a command line because that shows you the system log. It gives you a continuous system log, and so when you come across things like problems with a module or problems with some kind of driver or something like that, more than likely that's going to point you in the right direction.
I would have, but it took me 25 seconds to open the terminal, so I wasn't waiting around.
Oh.
Just kidding. Sorry. All right. We are going to move on to our next topic, which is going back to our must-have apps for Ubuntu. And I think last week we made it up to Etcher. Yeah, Etcher was the last one we made it up to. So the 12th one on the list is probably not something that everybody is going to use, but it is on the must-have app list, which is Callbird, a Twitter client. So I know maybe not everybody in here has a Twitter account, but if you do, I think this was made by, wasn't this made by Daniel Llewellyn? Dan?
Oh, it might be. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure this was, if I'm not
And
mistaken.
it was forked from Core Bird, right?
I think he made the snap. I don't think he made Callbird itself, did he?
Oh, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like his name. You're right. Maybe it's because I know I saw his name somewhere on the Snap page. Maybe he's just the one that snapped it up. Yep.
No, he's just the guy who snapped it up.
Yep. But so, again, for the new people that are here, if you want to talk about the specific app or maybe a replacement of what we're bringing up, you're more than welcome to just use the raise hand thingy, and we'll get around to you. But to be honest with you, I don't use a desktop Twitter client, so this is not something that, even though I'm on Twitter a lot, I'll usually use either just Twitter on the web page or TweetDeck. So I don't really use a desktop client. How about you guys?
I usually either do in the browser or off my phone. Use the Twitter app off my phone. I find that the browser, the in-browser interface gives me what I need to do to. I don't like Twitter, and if I could avoid using it, I would. But for what I do in Twitter, I don't follow hashtags or anything like that. I have a few people I follow. Surprisingly, I have like over 300 followers. I don't know how that happened because when I do tweet, it's usually just something inane and not really insightful or helpful or anything like that. So.
Yep. All right, Alan.
I use Twitter a lot, and part of it is part of my job. So I have access to the Snapcraft Twitter account and the Ubuntu Twitter account and a Ubuntu podcast and a bunch of stuff. And I basically avoided all the apps because most of them can't cope with having multiple accounts and very easily switching between them. Because I need to be able to use multiple accounts. That's a key selling point. So I've started now for a long time actually using just a browser tab that goes to TweetDeck, but I go into the menu in Chromium or Chrome or whatever, and under the More Tools menu I do Create Shortcut and tick the little box that says Create New Window, and what that gives me is a standalone window, which is just a browser window, but it means I can alt tab to it, and it means I can close it really easily just by hitting the X in the corner. And so I do that for a lot of applications. I just have a browser tab that's extracted from the browser and it's just a separate window, but it means you get an icon in the launcher. You can launch that application. And so I just use TweetDeck like that. I just hit the application button on my desktop, type TweetDeck, it launches, and I'm away. And I have like loads and loads of columns defined, and there seems to be no desktop app that can do what TweetDeck does. So yeah, that's what I tend to use.
Yeah, I'm a big TweetDeck fan too, and it works really great when you have multiple, accounts that you're working with. So that's the beauty behind that. DJ, go right ahead.
So as a rule, I don't usually use Twitter or Facebook, but I do have to for my videos. But if I do that, I just make a progressive web application and make that installable, so I can take that with me. And that way, at least you turn their tracking off.
Yep. Well, again, I don't know. I don't even have any research. Haven't done any research on any other apps like Callbird because I just use the webs. Anybody else got anything they want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just use the web interface as well. I mean, there's no real reason to have a separate desktop app for it. I don't tweet enough to make the need to be a need for anything other than just the actual just a website. I do more reading than I do tweeting.
Yep. All right, so the next one on the list, number 13, might be controversial. I don't know, depending on your viewpoint. But the next one is VLC. So I guess for a media player, the app that you should have on your computer, according to this list, is VLC. It's not controversial in the sense of that's normal because that's been the go-to for years for a lot of different places, but it's not for me. And I used to count on VLC for everything. And then it just kind of got wonky and weird for me. And, I went to SM Player and never looked back. And it does everything that I need it to do. And so we'll let it at that. Alan, you can start it out.
I used to use VLC quite a lot. I've switched now and I use MPV. I generally launch things just from the command line, like MPV, and then tab complete, hit enter, and it launches like near instantly. I used to quite like MPlayer, but MPV seems super reliable, super easy to use. It's interesting that one of our employees did a survey a few years ago before the LTS, the last LTS, 1804, I think. And he was asking the internet a whole bunch of questions, and a lot of people replied because he asked the same questions in like 10 different places. And one of the questions was, how do you play music? And there are a lot of people who said Spotify, and there are a lot of people who said, generic streaming service or something. But there was a ton of people whose music player of choice is VLC.
Really?
Like, yep, not Rhythm Box, not whatever. Banshee was the one that was written in mono. Not that. It was VLC. It was far higher than anything else. I don't understand why, but that was the fact of the matter. So weird.
That is weird.
This might be a little aside from the point, but if you've ever used VLC on Android, it is awesome, and it actually is the best music player I've found for like local files.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right,
well, that makes sense because it's Android, and you're going to be kind of hard pressed to find an app. And with VLC, they've kind of already got that general UI UX kind of idea, so they just had to.
Yeah, I meant like it looks like the old Google. Well, I mean, not exactly, but it's the same kind of interface that you'd find in most music players, like the old Google Play Music or whatever. Like it actually looks like a modern music player, but it's VLC. It's weird.
It does look good.
You mean the Google Play Music that's dying that they're removing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was my podcast app for a long time because it came installed.
Yep. Anything else you want to add to that, Daniel? Is VLC your go-to?
Yeah. Well, not for I'm actually kind of in the same boat as Alan. I use MPV, and then if I'm like playing music like an album, I use CMUS a lot. But one thing that VLC has, well, two things. One, it is Qt based, as all GUI apps should be. Second, it can do everything. It works for anything.
Not anything. I will disagree with you on that because I have found quite a few files that VLC has trouble playing.
But there is one thing where, like, I have a laptop over here that happens to have FreeBSD on it right now, and it also happens to have an optical drive in it. And I got an audiobook from the library that was on CDs versus like the digital thing. I'm like, how am I going to play this? And I'm like, I bet VLC can play audio CDs. And and it works. It's fine. Yeah. It
Yeah.
can do.
So Rocco, you say it doesn't play everything, and it may not, but boy, does it play a lot of stuff. And like Daniel kind of hinted at, it comes installed almost everywhere, or you can install it on just about any
I
platform.
was like, if there's one media app I know is going to be on this operating system, it's VLC.
Yeah, which is really great, honestly. It's it's a great thing to have in the toolbox, I think.
I want to say that years ago it was the go-to thing, even for me. Like it was my go-to, and then slowly but surely, as time goes by, you have this file that it won't play, or and there were specific issues, and I for the life of me, I can't remember what they were, but there were specific issues that it had where it would stutter, and it was like, you know what, I'm just going to see what else is out there, and I ended up switching, but it works fine for most circumstances. And it is on everything.
Stop lying to us, Rocco. We know you just found a pixel out of place. You had to
Well,
leave.
I mean, that too, but
it isn't the most beautiful. I'll give you that one. Yeah, but boy, does it work. It works pretty good. So, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah.
You got your hand up.
This is going to sound counterintuitive. I don't really care for VLC that much anymore. I used to love it. It was the best on Windows. It was the best on Linux. It was pretty much the de facto media player out there. But then I noticed, at least to me, it seemed like it began to crash a lot, and I started having a lot of problems with it. So I have since moved to, I guess it's called celluloid now. It used to be GNOME MPV. And I love that. I love that. I think that works great. But after saying all that, I still find that because of the fact that VLC plays just about almost any file there is, I still download it just because of that. It's not my favorite and it's not my first choice, but it's always there when I need it.
Fail safe.
Yeah, I think it's super handy. Super handy. Computer Kid, go ahead, chime in.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay. I agree with the kind of the normal answer for this group, which so far has seemed to be the majority, is just it's a good tool to have in the toolbox. It works most of the time. It's not something you want to have open 24/7, but if you find this odd file and you just want to toss it somewhere, VLC can probably do the job. My main music service is Spotify. I don't keep much local music on hand, but if I did, I wouldn't use VLC, but it's great for just, oh, I need to see what's in this video file real quick, toss it in VLC. I need to listen to this MP3, toss it in VLC. It's very nice for that little utility.
Yep. There's no question that it's a go-to and a fail-safe, but yeah. Big Pod, go ahead.
Well, I use VLC, but I don't use it a lot. Well, I mostly play music on it or something. I have like some movies, but for everything I do, it works. Anyway, I'll probably, if I have it, probably even play it most likely on a Android on TV, so on VLC on that, which works fabulously. So VLC and VLC guy all around.
All right, so a lot of you agree that it should be on this list. How about you, Nate?
I heart VLC. I use it all the time. That and well, because it literally plays everything for me. Although I have noticed today, for the first time in a long while, it wouldn't die. Like went to quit and it wouldn't quit. Like it refused to quit. So maybe it's telling me that it needs to stay running all the time, and I need to just let it be, give it its space on my system, and just let it always be there. But yeah, no, I use it all the time. I create playlists in it for my memory work for my kids. Computer Kid knows what I'm talking about when I say memory work. And I create VLC playlists that are very portable. So it works on VLC, and there's something that's default in XFCE on OpenSUSE. I can't remember what the application's called, but it also reads the same playlist files. And since I have things mapped in such a way that the directories work, so when I synchronize stuff over, then they have their memory work for the day or the week rather that they need to do. And so if I'm not there, they can do the memory work and so forth. So VLC is actually a cornerstone piece. Although, I mean, I guess if that other application can do the same thing, so maybe it's just as well. But it works. It plays the files, and you know, why replace it why replace it? I guess. Now, if someone shows me something that's cooler and does it even better, I will
SM
definitely
Player.
listen. I've tried it. I abandoned SM Player about 8 years ago.
Why?
Because it was, I don't know, VLC just did things better. Like it played, it played MP4s, you know, but I should probably be careful what I say. So I used to,
Okie dokie.
Yeah. So we're playing my movies. VLC just did a better job.
Right.
Fair enough. That makes a lot of sense.
And on top of it, during the during Christmas time, it automatically has a Santa hat on it, like around Christmas.
Yes.
And so if some other application also did that, then they would have my business where I don't give them any money either. So
well, that's important. Yes.
Yeah.
Leo, can you save us?
Okay. Winamp. It really kicks the. No, I won't do it. But
don't do it.
But let me tell you, this is where I came from. This is exactly where I came from on Windows. I always used Winamp for everything. You can just open Winamp, drag and drop your files into Winamp, and it will do its thing and play. And this might be the answer to your question, Alan, about why people enjoy VLC. Just drag it in there. And the reason I don't know if I enjoy a media player. I mean,
I enjoy it when it works.
Well, I can't enjoy any of them if they don't play the files, right? So my answer to this question is whatever comes on the operating system, that's what I use. That's what I like, so long as it plays my files. And I don't know if that's celluloid or MPV or whatever. It's just I double click on the file. And whatever video player pops up and plays the video, that's what I like because it played my video.
I think you mean single click.
Oh,
yes, that's exactly what he means.
All right. So, and I think that's it, right? So, you know, I hate to bring back the Fedora thing, but Fedora doesn't play everything out of the box, right? So, first thing I did was, I don't want to have to install RPM Fusion right now, so let me just install VLC and I can play my video files. That I think is, yeah. So I guess that does kind of hit the status quo where it's a tool, plays your videos, makes it work.
Steve, are you crying still? He's not there anymore.
Look, at the end of all of it, I did install
here,
RPM
but I'm crying.
Okay.
Tears are
I did
flowing.
install RPM Fusion and everything else and installed all the codecs and everything works fine now. But yeah, it's a bit of a slog to get up.
Don't you have to install RPM Fusion to get the version of VLC that can play everything? Or
I think so. I think you can just grab the regular VLC. Pretty sure that's what I did. I don't know.
I don't know what the big deal is. There, right in the documentation, Fedora documentation, there's 2 little command line commands to run. It installs everything you need from RPM Fusion. Boom, boom, you're done. Simple as pie.
It's not a big deal, but let me tell you what, you know what I like to do while I'm inputting command line commands? Listen to music.
Wait.
So the music has to come on first,
It's going to be an awfully short song to hear it.
Yeah.
Nate, what's up?
Steve, what kind of pie? Because some pies are easy to make and some pies are not.
Right.
If it's a double, like a pumpkin pie or a double layer cheesecake, pumpkin cheesecake, those are easy. But like an apple pie with the woven, top on it, that is not so easy to weave.
The lattice.
Good point, Nate.
I mean, maybe the crust fruit pies are easy though. Also, Steve, the song doesn't have to be that short because you have to wait for DNF to finish.
Oh,
just
let's
the tab
not talk
completion.
about that.
Wow.
Tab completion. Yeah.
No,
I know every time you run DNF that your repositories are always up to date. That's the
I know. I understand. I appreciate DNF.
And dependencies are resolved.
It's my second favorite package manager. So, yeah.
Just remember, NASCAR refers to DNF as did not finish.
Right.
Wow.
That's because they're stupid.
Wow.
So
I feel this train going off the rails.
Yeah.
Hey, computer kid, come on in here.
VLC is a good player, and I love the fact that you can do screen recording with it too, out of the box. So.
One thing, people were talking about playing movies in VLC. If you've got like, ripped DVDs, legally you still own. They're right here in a stack. You still own them. You just rip them, so you can watch them on your computer. Oh, it started. Am I still here? Yeah, I am. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
But the best place to watch those movies, in my opinion, would be Jellyfin. I've been really enjoying Jellyfin recently with my various ripped DVDs that I own. They're all they're all on there.
Sure.
It streams super fast, surprisingly. Like, I don't have the best networking setup or the best fastest hard drives or the best of any parts of the stack between the Jellyfin movies and my whatever device, TV, phone, laptop, but it streams super fast, same quality as the DVD was. It's been impressing me on the movie side. So I would say if you got movies you want to play, try Jellyfin.
Well, you
And
don't.
then you don't have to deal with shipping them to each laptop. You can just watch them off the server.
Sync thing works, but it eats them gigabytes.
Sure does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you don't have the hardware.
35 gigs of music.
But
That's
I don't
why
even.
you have the terabyte drives.
I don't even have a DVD drive in the computer, so.
I have a Blu-ray drive, but it's not actually hooked up.
So
I took my DVD drive out of this laptop to replace it with a second hard drive, but the server down there has a CD drive in it that I use for ripping DVDs.
internal or external, Jason?
As far as the Blu-ray, it's internal, but I just don't have it hooked up. My brother, he took our entire DVD collection, which is I think it's probably a good 500 DVDs strong or whatever. And what he did was he's got two systems up there that are his ripping machines. One of them is three Blu-ray drives, and the other one is 3 DVD drives. So if they're Blu-rays, they go in there, and the DVDs go in there. And he ripped them all onto our Plex server.
Nice.
Yeah, so he's got like every computer he's got up there. I think he's got like 8 computers, and I think they all have like 3 CD-ROMs in them, just because he rips all the DVDs and stuff.
All right, Thomas.
So, I don't have anything against VLC. I only use VLC in 3 instances. 2 of them can actually be lumped together. But most of the time, I don't use it. I use Parole instead. But when I do use VLC, it's either because I have a DVD that's scratched up that I don't think will play normally, because in my experience, I have found that if I have a scratched up DVD, VLC will often read it when everything else will not. Same thing goes for a video file if I'm not sure about. And if a video file can't be read or a DVD can't be read by VLC, I'm just like, all right, if VLC can't read it, it's probably dead. Trash. And the other time I use VLC is actually not on my laptop. I have a drone that has a camera in it that can take video, and the video file it outputs I cannot watch on a tablet or phone. So I have to have VLC installed on my phone or tablet in order to watch the videos back on those devices. So VLC to the rescue for that. I don't hate it or anything like that. Whenever I have to go play a video for a bunch of Cub Scouts, I'll just do a quick snap install VLC before I go. That way I have it. But if I just have something that I'm not sure about, I'll quickly install it, test whatever I'm trying to run. If it plays, okay then. Everything else that I have just can't read it. VLC can, but everything else can't. But otherwise, I don't ever use it. Otherwise, it's great, but
So So how many of you guys, with a show of hands, thinks that VLC should be on this list as a must-have app? Yeah, that's pretty much everybody.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a go-to, program for anything that when those out of bounds or file types that normally don't get used, or sometimes you download something off the internet and to watch a video file, and that's pretty much the only thing that are based off the file type. VLC is 99% of the time going to be the one that's going to open it.
Yep. All right, I think we're going to stop it there and continue on next time. I think the next one is, well, this is pretty weird to talk about. GNOME tweaks would be the next one on the list that we'll start with next week. So, yeah, there you go.
Interesting.
All right, so that's going to do it for here, but everybody gets a last word. Dan Simmons, you can start out.
All right, thanks, Rocco. Hard to believe 2 hours went by here. I don't know where it went. But anyway, great being here. Great conversation, and look forward to next week.
Joe, last word.
Well, it's good to be back here again with the earlier hours and grandkids popping over and stuff. It's been a little bit more challenging, so time with the family, but I do enjoy being back here and the conversation, and I do like the platform. The distro challenges are great, but I kind of think that there's a little bit better benefit in some ways to this, as far as for overall for people who are becoming to Linux and trying to figure out what tools. But I do still think that the challenges have their place when we get around to those. So, but thank you very much. I hope everybody is doing well and that families are safe, and just enjoy what's left of the summer here. And Colin, we'll be pushing it down that way to you soon enough, buddy. Have a great night.
Yeah, the distro challenges will probably make it back, especially when there's like new releases or something major that we want to check it out. But I think this is working out pretty good. Tyler, last word. Tyler, did you fall asleep? Daniel Bourne.
Tyler, you're muted.
Yeah, thanks, Rocco, Dan, everybody else for the stream. Appreciate it. Glad I could make it this week. It's always good to be able to get in here and talk with you guys and gals when Barb's here. I just have such a great time doing this. It's such a good release, and I like the new format where we can just pick topics and just kind of like talk about stuff, Linuxy stuff, whatever, just techie stuff, whatever. It's cool. It's all good, man. So everybody have a great week, and looking forward to next time.
Yeah, we get into Linuxy topics and then Bill derails us, but yeah. Dave Jones, last word.
Thanks, Rocco, and everybody else that comes on every week to join in whatever discussion we have. The show is like two of my favorite hours of every week. I just enjoy it so much, and I'm really thankful. And I just wanted to say that. Can't wait until next Saturday to see you all again.
Harris, last word.
Thank you very much for the stream. I think VLC is like that safety cone, the picture. Comes in handy when nothing else works.
Yep. Alan. Last word, brother.
Sorry, I was mildly distracted playing around with Bash Top. Sorry.
Understandable.
Yeah, I was just fiddling around. Thank you, Rocco. It's lovely to drop by and say hello. Yeah, see you all next time.
Dale, last word.
Thank you for providing this venue for us to hang out on a Saturday night, and appreciate everything that you and Dan and the rest of your team do for us. And I just wanted to say that I've never been happier with Linux than I have in the past 25 years as I am now, because I could just remember looking back at saying it was just that close to being, usable, and something would keep you from using it. And I'd say in the past 10 years or so, I haven't missed Windows at all.
Yep. Very nice. Tony, last word.
Just want to apologise for the noisy fan earlier. I had no idea it was going to create a problem. I tried moving it this week to try and improve things. Obviously, that's a failure. I've switched it off now, so hopefully it can't cause a problem anymore.
It's all good, Tony.
Yeah, well, it's hot, so I've got to have something. But anyway, it's a great show. Good conversation. I was tired before it started, but I managed to keep awake, so it couldn't have been that bad. There was no talk of Mac or Windows hardly, which is always a plus. And take care, everyone. I hope to see you all same time, same place next week.
Jason, last word.
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody that makes the show happen. It's definitely great to come in here and just be able to discuss. At this point, it looks like we're discussing a wide variety of different things, whether it be apps, Linux distros, whatever the case may be, and it's definitely fun and it's definitely educational at the same time.
Jinda.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with me, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Thank you.
Colin. You're muted, Colin. Colin, we do this every week, dude.
Thanks, Rock and Co, for the platform. Yeah, look, I miss Windows, to be honest, because if I don't have it on my device, I don't get a chance to nuke it every time I install a new Linux distro. But besides that, I did a lot of listening tonight because it's amazing that, when we talk about applications and that, there's always something that you just don't know. There's so many applications out there that you don't know exist. And example tonight, Computer Kid mentioned Jellyfin. Never heard of it. Looks like a Kodi media player alternative or something like that.
It's actually a Plex alternative, if you've heard of
Oh,
Plex.
okay. Right. Yes, I have. Yes. Never used it, but I've heard of it. So, yeah, it's interesting. So, yeah. Great chat tonight. It was interesting listening. So, see you all next week. Take care.
Steve.
Which one, right?
I guess we're right next to each other.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
I guess I'll go. Thanks, Rocco and guys. Everything being back on with you guys is always great. I hope everybody takes care and be safe.
All right, Steve.
Thanks, Rocco, so much for hosting this weekly lug get together. I love the new format because it really does feel like a lug. This new format really has kind of introduced me to all the different directions that the people who gather here week after week are taking Linux, using Linux, and enjoying Linux in their day-to-day lives. And that's been a real plus in my opinion. So thanks a lot. I'll just go cry in my corner about your Fedora hate, but it's all right. I'll still listen to the next Linux user podcast.
Yep.
Take care, everybody. Have a great night.
Thomas, last word.
Hello. Thank you for having another Biddle this week. 'Twas lots of fun. Other than that, yeah, I don't have a lot to say this week.
Man, thank goodness. Daniel Stevenson, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Rocco and Dan and everyone for putting this on. I love talking to you guys every week, and I look forward to the next Biddle.
DJ.
Good to be here again, and I always enjoy the chat with you guys, and I like to listen more than talk. So it's a good to hear your perspectives on things as well. I learn a lot from all of you, believe it or not. Thanks, thank you, Rocco.
Leah.
Have a great week, y'all.
Thanks again for letting me come on here, crash the party. Steve, I will carry on the Fedora banner forever. Thanks.
Bill.
Talking about crashing, I'm going to derail this train. Real quick, I just wanted to point out Martin Wimpress has created a Discord channel called Wimpy's World. And if you go to wimpysworld.com, you'll find a link. And there's a lot of stuff going on there. Another good thing I wanted to take a mention to people that don't really get a lot of attention Brian Murray and Lucas. Oh gosh, I'm gonna mess up Lucas's name. Zesmik. I got a chance to do a bunch of stuff the last couple of weeks with the 0.1 release and the 1804 release, and it's great to work with them. They're so good to the flavors. They're helpful. I just want to point out how awesome it is to work with some of those guys. So that's it.
I agree with you, Bill.
All right, Chris, last word.
Well, as a Fedora administrator and user and all around
fanboy,
let me quote Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Just let me be your lightning rod of hate. Anyway, sorry I've missed you guys for, oh God, it's been over a month, I think, since I've been here. Just been getting things rearranged at the museum. Got a whole donation of some pretty good computers, and been spending time getting them back online and up to standards. So, but thanks for still being here. Not much else I gotta say.
All right, Nate, last word.
Well, I want to say thanks for letting me squeeze in here in the last few minutes. My departure from a family get-together was delayed because I had lots of family asking me about this thing called Linux and how to protect their privacy. I mean, like I had a crowd around me. It was really weird. Like, you're not my regular nerd friends. You're family.
I think there was a news article that came out. My granddad asked me about that this week too.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So I gave him a flash drive. I gave him Kubuntu and OpenSUSE on a Ventoy thing, but I basically said use Kubuntu. So Mr. Pope basically suggested that, and I think it's a better choice for. He knows how to partition, a computer and set up Windows 7. So if he can do that, he can do this. So yeah, that's why I was late. So thanks for having me.
Computer Kid.
Nate, I can't believe he was looking for privacy and you set him up with Ubuntu. We all know it's the devil and steals all your information. I'm being entirely sarcastic.
Yeah, but it's Ubuntu stealing it. We can trust them.
Oh yeah, we can trust them to steal it. Good deal. But I agree with.
I've got all of yours right here, Computer Kid. It's all right here.
Oh no.
all of your data.
Oh no.
It's in the bin.
I shouldn't have used it there too. Oh no. I agree with Tony. I'm glad there was no Mac or Windows talk today. If you talk about it too much, you'll run me off.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for us. We are recording a new Linux user space just for Steve on Monday night, Monday night, not tomorrow night. And we'll be releasing that the following week. I did get that Linux Spotlight episode edited with Nate Graham, so I have to render that out. Should be posting tomorrow. And tomorrow for the patrons, Wednesday for everybody else. And I think that's it. I think that's all I got. We will see you next week. But until then, long live Linux.
Good night, everybody. Good night,
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Computer Kid, I was waiting for the bat time thing.